From London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Paul Barber. Our top stories this hour. China's lawmakers set out more details of reforms and policies to chart the country's future following a high-level meeting in Beijing. Israel intercepts a missile fired from Yemen as international concern grows over deadly exchanges with the Houthi group. China prepares for the arrival of 2 tropical cyclones following days of flash flooding in several areas. And back on the presidential campaign trail for Donald Trump as Joe Biden mulls his future from COVID isolation. China's CPC Central Committee has released further details of this week's key policy meeting. The party has set out a series of reforms aimed at modernising the country. President Xi Jinping said the changes are necessary to ensure China can respond to future risks and challenges. The measures adopted cover a wide range of areas, including the economy, people's well-being, security and party governance. Our correspondent Su Yuting reports from Beijing.
The resolution gives a general outline on the significant importance and overall requirements for further deepening reform comprehensively to advance Chinese modernization. It reiterates the importance and necessity of comprehensively deepening reform. It also stresses the guiding ideologies behind the reform. The resolution describes China's goal to continue developing a socialist system with Chinese characteristics. It highlights the country's goal to finish building a high-standard socialist market economy in all respects by 2035. It also stresses the principles of the reform, which include key factors such as CPC's leadership, the party's people-centered development approach, innovation, and rule of law. The resolution stresses the importance of building a high-standard socialist market economy. It calls for firmly consolidating the public sector and further reforming state-owned enterprises while creating favorable conditions for private sector. It emphasizes building a unified domestic market and enhancing the fundamental institutions of the market economy. The resolution says high-quality development is essential for building a modern socialist country in all respects. It urges relevant institutions and mechanisms to focus on fostering new quality productive forces in line with local conditions. China is pushing for the deeper integration of its physical and digital economies, an improved infrastructure construction system, and more resilient industrial supply chains. The resolution calls on building a support system for innovation. It says China will continue to deepen educational reform and develop a high-quality education system. It also emphasizes reforms on scientific and technological sectors, including strengthening China's strategic scientific and tech capabilities, improving science and tech planning and management, and encouraging enterprises to take initiatives. The resolution also stresses talent reforms, calling for better talent management and incentive mechanisms. The resolution says China will improve national strategic planning and policy coordination mechanisms. China will also deepen reforms of its fiscal and taxation systems and refine its financial system. The nation aims to improve the mechanisms for implementing its regional development strategy. The resolution says integrated urban and rural development is essential to Chinese modernization. It says China will improve the institutions and mechanisms for advancing new urbanization. China will also consolidate and improve its basic rural operation system. Meanwhile, it will improve supporting systems to strengthen agriculture, benefit farmers, and enrich rural areas. China will also deepen and reform its land system and enhance land management. The resolution says opening up is a defining feature of Chinese modernization. To achieve this, China will remain committed to its reform and opening up strategy and refine its foreign trade structure. China will also reform its management systems for inward and outward investment. The country aims to deepen regional opening up and promote new mechanisms for high-quality Belt and Road cooperation. The resolution demands opening more channels to listen to and poll public opinions, and giving people more ways to take part in grassroots-level governance. It stresses that China's whole process people's democracy is a fundamental requirement for its modernization. The resolution also requires stepping up legal reform, including the introduction of new laws for foreign affairs and the promotion of international cooperation on law enforcement. The resolution adds that cultural confidence must be strengthened. It also says international people-to-people and cultural exchanges will be increased. The resolution promises efforts to effectively increase the income of those with low earnings and expand the base of the middle-income groups. It vows to boost employment, focusing on jobs for college graduates, migrant workers and veterans. Regarding the property market, cities will be allowed to scrap or ease restrictions to boost the sales. The document also promises measures such as tax preferences to boost the birth rate. Efforts will also be made to cope with the Asian population and steadily raise the country's retirement age. The resolution states that China aims to advance its ecological civilization reforms and achieve harmony between humanity and nature. The government will enhance its ecological framework and governance to build an environmentally friendly and sustainable economy, paving the way for carbon neutrality. The resolution says strengthening national security is crucial for China to achieve high-quality development and long-term stability. The government is enhancing national security systems, improving public safety mechanisms, and advancing social governance. China will also improve local mechanisms to support its role in global security governance. The resolution states China will advance its defense and military reforms to achieve the centenary goals of the People's Liberation Army. China aims to improve military leadership management mechanisms, enhance joint operation systems, and refine military-civilian governance. The resolution demands the party improve its governance capabilities to lead the nation's reform and modernization. It highlights the importance of anti-corruption efforts and says the whole party must implement reform measures to support the need of the people. The nation is committed to peaceful development and aims to create an environment favorable to Chinese-style modernization.
Israel's military says it has intercepted a missile fired from Yemen, which was targeting the city of Eilat. Yemen's Houthi group confirmed that it launched an attack less than a day after Israel struck Yemen's port city of Hodeidah. On Friday, the Houthis claimed responsibility for a drone assault in Tel Aviv, which killed one person. Our correspondent Jonathan Regev is in Tel Aviv. Jonathan, talk us through the latest.
Yes, as you mentioned, Paul, there was a missile that was intercepted this morning, fired from Yemen. This is far from surprising. No one here in Israel was under the illusion that following that Israeli strike in the port of Hodeidah on Saturday afternoon, the attacks from Yemen will stop. The Houthis vowed to keep on pushing, maybe even more than they did before. And there was that missile that was fired towards Eilat early this morning and was intercepted. This will probably be more and more of what we will see now, attempts from Yemen and also from other Iranian proxies in the region, maybe in Iraq or so, to fire missiles, to fire UAVs towards Israel. The assumption here is that we will see more and more of them as the war in Gaza is constantly ongoing.
And as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu comes under growing pressure from both inside and outside of Israel, it's understood that he's going to make his first international trip next week, his first since October the 7th, and that will be to meet President Biden in Washington.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will take off for Washington tomorrow morning, on Monday morning, and he's set to meet President Biden on Tuesday afternoon. That meeting was perhaps scheduled to be a bit earlier, but Biden was, of course, in quarantine, in isolation due to COVID. Only after that isolation ends, both leaders will meet once in the U.S., and of course, when he meets President Biden, Netanyahu will be surely under a lot of pressure pressure to move on with that hostage deal. The Americans are eager to see that deal coming to fruition. We also heard Secretary of State Antony Blinken saying over the weekend that he believes that the agreement is closed. But while that will be the pressure in the U.S., here in Israel, Netanyahu is under pressure from his far-right members of coalition, mainly Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, both of them saying they will not be a part of any government that will support such a hostage deal, meaning that approving the deal will put the coalition under danger. And not only from the far-right members comes a danger to the coalition, also from the ultra-Orthodox, as today the first conscription orders have been sent to ultra-Orthodox youths following the decision from the Israeli Supreme Court. And the ultra-Orthodox parties are also a part of the Israeli coalition are extremely angry at this. They're putting pressure on Netanyahu. They may support the hostage deal, but they oppose any kind of conscription orders. How will Benjamin Netanyahu play around all of these different pressures? We'll have to wait and see. A lot of pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister.
Thanks so much for that, Jonathan. Jonathan Regev in Tel Aviv. Meanwhile, Israel has continued to launch attacks in Gaza. Our correspondent Akram Al-Satari has the latest.
Well, as a matter of fact, there was a statement that was made by the government media office. In that statement, they said that this Al-Nusayrat, in particular, Al-Nusayrat refugee camp was targeted 63 times in the last 7 days, and as a result of that, 91 Palestinians were killed and around 251 others were injured. Today, there were 4 main incidents. One residential building consisting of around 20 residential apartments was targeted. Other residential buildings were targeted. What is happening in Al-Nusayrat is perceived by some of the military analysts as preparation for an imminent ground operation that is going to start in the Gaza Central area, where some of the Israeli officials were saying that Al-Nusayrat is coming after Rafah and that they have a lot of things to do to dismantle Hamas brigades in that area. Also, there were some statements that the whole Gaza Central area would be a target of that ground operation. Another analysis is that the Israeli occupation forces are trying to prevent any targeting for the troops that are operating in Netzarim corridor. Al-Nusayrat is overarching Netzarim, and I think they have been targeting high areas, high buildings for the sake of preventing any further targeting for their troops that have been suffering in that area and that have been targeted by the Palestinian resistance frequently, and some of their soldiers and officers were killed and sniped in that particular area, and I think by that they have been trying to neutralize any potential security threats for their troops. But the solid fact that we have been seeing, Al-Nusayrat and Gaza Central area have been subjected to increasingly intensified fire. The number of people who are killed is increasing also, and all over the Gaza Strip, the number of people who were killed in the last 24 hours is 64, and the other people who were injured is around 200. So a continuation of the intensification of the fire and continuous loss among the people and within the facilities and the infrastructure in all over the Gaza Strip, and particularly in Al-Nusayrat area.
China is preparing for the arrival of 2 tropical cyclones, with the first expected to make landfall in the southern province of Hainan on Sunday. It follows days of flash flooding in different parts of China. Beijing has provided local governments in disaster-hit areas with an additional $36 million to support relief efforts. In northwest Shanxi, more bodies have been recovered after a bridge collapsed, bringing the death toll to 15. Well, in southwest China, 10 bodies have been recovered after flash flooding in the city of Ya'an in Sichuan province on Saturday. 29 others remain missing, as Guo Qianqi reports.
We arrived at the Ya'an, Hanyuan County last night, and we found that about 1,500 people from Xinhua village was affected because of the rainstorm and flash flood, and about 40 households was damaged, and 60 kilometers of roads were blocked. And so, as a matter of fact, we're not allowed to enter the worst hit area last night, and but we still made to the region's, county's People's Hospital, where all the 12 injured personnel were treated there. And also, we talked to some medical workers, and they say they arrived to the worst hit area, the Xinhua village, Saturday morning.
There was no road, and we walked through bamboo forests and cornfields. Walked for an hour to bring down the wounded from the mountain. using excavators. He's been hospitalized here with a crush injury to his leg.
And we also talked to some local villagers.
My husband was knocked down by the flood and hurt his leg. The rescue team brought him down from the mountain. He took an X-ray and the doctor says it's not very serious.
My
brother was evacuated before the mudslide. His house was totally damaged. His car was gone, but he's all right. The only thing we have is the clothes we wear, but we have to be strong to rebuild everything.
And as for the local rescue forces, the authority has already dispatched 23 professional teams into the area, including firefighters, police officers, armed police, medical workers, and also personnel from the Department of Communication and Telecommunication. And they're also bringing about 1,500 very professional equipment, such as excavators, some communication drones, and even an Elon unmanned aerial vehicle to this area. And the rescue forces is continue because they think that 72 hours after the accident is crucial in finding survivors.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead. In his first campaign event since the assassination attempt, Donald Trump tells his supporters he took a bullet for democracy.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos? And unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
I think it should be more global cooperation.
I would like to hear more the voice of the developing countries.
Globalization has lifted more than 1 billion people out of poverty.
The green transition has to happen. It's a necessity.
Well, China and the United States are important powers in the world.
What unites us is much more than what divides us.
And I believe China is committed to this agenda.
Join me, Juliet Mann, to set the agenda at these times every weekend on CGTN.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our headlines. China's lawmakers set out more details of reforms and policies to chart the country's future following a high-level meeting in Beijing. Israel intercepts a missile fired from Yemen as international concern grows over deadly exchanges with the Houthi group. The former US President Donald Trump has held his first campaign rally since surviving an assassination attempt last week. Security was tight as the Republican nominee addressed supporters alongside his running mate, J.D. Vance, at the event in Michigan. After pledging to unify the country following the shooting, Trump used his speech to verbally attack his Democratic opponents.
From the moment we take back the White House from crooked Joe Biden and Kamala, I call her Laughing Kamala. You ever watch her laugh? She's crazy. You know, you can tell a lot by her laugh. No, she's crazy. She's nuts. She's not as crazy as Nancy Pelosi, crazy girls. Did you see Nancy Pelosi is selling out Biden now? Did you see? She turned on him like a dog.
Well, Chris Carman is Professor of Politics at the University of Glasgow.
He did say that he was rewriting his speech to emphasize unity and to try to bring the country together after the attempted assassination on his life. But as you point out in his speech and in the many speeches that preceded him over the several nights before he spoke, fairly quickly the tone returned back to a very combative element where they attacked the Democrats and really tried to bring down the Democratic Party.
Did we learn anything else from Donald Trump's first rally on Saturday?
Well, one of the things that they've done is they've started to emphasize a bit more of the populist message that Trump has been associated with for some time. But now that he's selected J.D. Vance as his running mate, we've seen even more attempts to bring out this populist message, to sort of emphasize this idea that they're in it for the working class. And trying to reshape his message a little bit. He, for instance, went on the attack against what's called Project 2025, which is a very right-wing think tank element where they're trying to bring out very, very far-right conservative policies. Trump went and said that those were too severe and too far to the right. So Trump is trying to soften his message a little bit, but he can't stop himself from going on the attack.
So the current president, Joe Biden, is hunkered down at Rehoboth Beach with COVID still. Signs are that he's digging in against these top-drawer Democratic voices, pressuring him to bow out. But how much longer can this last?
That remains to be seen. As you say, there have been some very prominent voices. The Chuck Schumer, the leader of Democrats in the Senate, Hakeem Jeffries, the current leader of the Democrats in the House, and Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House, have all come out publicly to say that they think Biden should step down. We're getting close to 40 or so Democrats in the House and the Senate who have said that they think Biden should step down. So the pressure is building. And certainly the media narrative is the pressure is building. On the other hand, Joe Biden is very famously a rather stubborn individual. And there's not a lot of indication to say that he will step down. There have been reports saying he's considering it and he recognizes the concerns that people are raising. But, for instance, there was talk at the beginning of this weekend that this would be the weekend where we'd see him step down. And so far, there hasn't been a hint that he is going to. So it remains to be seen what he's going to do, whether he will step aside and allow the Democrats to nominate someone else at their convention, or whether he's going to dig his heels in, because it would be difficult for the Democrats to push him out if he refuses to go.
Bangladesh's Supreme Court has scaled back a controversial quota system for government jobs, which has sparked deadly protests. At least 114 people have been killed during the unrest, which has mainly been led by students. They were protesting against a policy which reserved 30% of government jobs for relatives of those who fought in the country's War of Independence. South Korea says it will retaliate after more balloons of trash from the DPRK fell inside its borders. The military says it will resume continuous loudspeaker broadcasts into the north, warning that Pyongyang's actions risked fatal consequences. Since May, the DPRK has floated thousands of large balloons carrying waste towards South Korea in response to leaflet drops from the south. And South Korea's First Lady has been questioned by prosecutors over allegations of stock manipulation and corruption involving a luxury gift. Hidden camera footage released last year appears to show Kim Pyon-hee accepting a $2,000 Dior handbag. South Korean law bans public officials and their spouses from receiving gifts that are worth more than $750. The head of the Paris Olympics Organising Committee says security is his top priority for the Games, which open on Friday. Tony Estanguet made the comments as athletes, spectators and the world's media begin to arrive in the city. He said that while the Games will be a celebration of sport and unity, safety was foremost in organisers' minds.
There is for each single moment, for the opening ceremony, but also for all the competitions before and after the opening ceremony, a specific plan to guarantee the security for all the accredited persons and the spectators. So we can absolutely guarantee that security was the priority number one of Paris 2024.
Well, excuse me, well, the Olympics are being held in a country famous for its bread, wine, meat and cheese, but with the food and agricultural industries being huge polluters, French chefs have some fruity solutions on the menu, as Ross Cullen reports from Paris.
Picking fruit by hand is delicate work, but these farm labourers are not working on a regular harvest. because these small berries have an Olympic future, destined for the restaurants of the Paris 2024 Athletes Village.
We at Fruits Rouge are very proud to be a partner of the Olympics, to be able to supply the athletes and bring them fine, local, French produce. I've adapted for the fruit they want. I changed my harvest with more or less mature berries, the size of the fruit, to adapt to what's been asked of me to provide for the Games.
The raspberries are grown a short drive north of the French capital, part of an ambition for the Games to reduce food miles and eat French produce from small farms like this. Environmental concerns are a key part of the food strategy of Paris 2024, and the raspberries here are organic, pesticide-free. This is where the fruit will end up, in what will be this summer the world's biggest restaurant complex, feeding and fueling 15,000 Olympic athletes. There will be 2 dining halls dedicated to French gastronomy, among other offerings for competitors with a different taste.
Of course, we have our culinary heritage, but there will be 206 delegations coming who we will welcome to our table. It's important for us that each athlete performs to the highest level, and to do that, we must respect their dietary needs.
One of the major partners for the Games is the Carrefour supermarket group, one of the world's biggest retailers. The group has been working hard to align its green targets, its role in the Games, and place on the world stage.
It is certainly possible to have the ambition to be both a partner of a global event and to be engaged with the green transition and the food transition. So with everything we have in place and that we will put in place, we can inspire others to be part of the beautiful heritage that we will leave after the 8th September and the closing ceremony for the Paris 2024 Games.
Over the coming weeks, hundreds of thousands of athletes, dignitaries and fans will feast on the world's most famous cuisine, from the grand dishes of Michelin-starred restaurants down to little red fruits from family farms like this. Ross Cullen, CGTN, L'Oeil-sur-Cussy, Northern France.
More than 40,000 meals will be served daily at the Olympic Village during the Paris Games, making it the world's largest catering operation. Our correspondent Siobhan McCall reports.
The Paris organisers have chosen 4 themes to try and satisfy every palate. There's Asian, Afro-Caribbean, world cuisine and, of course, French. Highlights include minced pork with Thai basil and poached egg croissants. When you're hosting the world's biggest sporting event, you need your top talent on board. 3 of France's most famous chefs, Amandine Chenou, Alexandre Mazia and Akram Benalou, have designed the menus. Mazia is a former professional basketball player who carried the Olympic torch in his hometown Marseille. Benalou owns steakhouses around the world, but he says he wants his food at the Paris Games to be a link between the athletes, so his recipes are mostly vegetarian. In fact, around a third of the athletes' food will be plant-based, and 80% of ingredients will be sourced from France. Only bananas, chocolate and coffee will be brought in from other countries. And although there are 500 dishes on offer, some teams just can't resist a bit of familiarity. Australia's Olympic Committee says home comforts are a key part of the plan for success. And more than 2,000 pies and 1,500 kilos of Australian breakfast cereals will be sent over to Paris.
And that is The World Today. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.